Hi there, I'm board-certified dermatologist and skin wellness expert Dr. Cynthia Bailey. And today I'm going to talk about why the sun is worse in the summer. So have you noticed that in the winter you can get away with a little indiscretion in the sun, maybe not keeping up with your sun protective activities like applying sunscreen and wearing a hat, and yet you don't seem to sunburn as much, but in the summer you do that just a little bit and you accumulate a sunburn and freckles and your skin starts to look leathery and bad. Do you know that there are two ultraviolet rays that are important when it comes to UV radiation from the sun? There's UVB and UVA. And the difference is the wavelengths. Ultraviolet light is light and light is a wave. And with ultraviolet light, when the waves are really narrow and close together, they're in the UVB spectrum, which is 290 to 320 nanometers. As the waves get longer, they then are considered UVA waves. And there's UVA2, which goes 320 nanometers to 340 nanometers, and UVA1, which is even longer, 340 to 400 nanometers. In the summer, you're getting more UVB than you're getting in the winter. However, UVB is much less intense on Earth. So 95% of the ultraviolet light that you're experiencing anytime on Earth is UVA. 5% is UVB. The percentage of UVB in the ultraviolet light varies, however, and in the summer it's closer to that 5%. That 5% is what's causing sunburns and why the sun feels more intense. And the reason is the Earth's atmosphere and the proximity of the sun to you when you're on Earth. So, schematically, this is the Earth, and let's assume you're in the northern hemisphere like me. Here's the equator. In the winter, the sun is down in the southern hemisphere, and it's coming up and hitting you from way down there. We've got the Earth's atmosphere around the Earth, including the ozone in the atmosphere, and that's absorbing UVB. So the sun ray has to traverse a larger tangential path to hit you up in the northern hemisphere, and UVB is absorbed and nullified or scattered as it traverses that atmospheric crust. In the summer, however, the sun, like us, is in the northern hemisphere, and it has more of a straight shot to get to you. So this direct route, this perpendicular route, is shorter than this tangential route, which is why UVB increases very significantly in the summer. It's an important increase both for acute and chronic consequences of sun exposure. So the acute consequences of sun exposure you know as sunburn and tanning. The chronic consequences of sun exposure you know as photoaging, like crepey and thin skin, and skin cancer. That UVB plays an important role in both of those, though UVA is not off the hook either. Now UVA, as opposed to UVB, is not absorbed by the Earth's atmospheric crust. So UVA is out all day, all year, anywhere on Earth, about, not exactly, but about equally intense. UVB, on the other hand, is more intense in the summer, and especially midday when the sun is directly over you. Morning and night, the sun is hitting you more from a tangent, so it has to pass through a bigger proportion of the Earth's atmospheric crust to get to you. And so you experience the sun as weaker. You experience less propensity to sunburn. Middle of the day though, when it's straight overhead, especially in the summer, the sun is very prone to sunburning your skin. And in fact, 80% of the sunburn that you get from summer sun is due to UVB. And then there's a little bit of burning from UVA2 as well. And what is a sunburn? And what happens when ultraviolet light penetrates your skin? So the ultraviolet light penetrates the skin either into the epidermis or into the dermis. UVB penetrates primarily into the epidermis. UVA can go deeper down into the dermis. What happens when the ultraviolet light penetrates the skin is the energy in these wavelengths. These wavelengths have a lot of energy. And that energy is transferred into things that absorb energy called chromophores. So the common chromophore that you think of is melanin. That's why you get a tan. It's one of the ways your body is trying to protect itself from ultraviolet light. It's trying to create extra chromophores so that you get less direct hits from that energy transfer to things that are precious and vital, such as DNA. When that energy is transferred to a nucleic acid, like in your DNA, instead of to melanin, it causes a damage. And the most important damage that it causes are pyrimidine dimers, where parts of the nucleic acid blob together and create trouble. And that trouble can lead to skin cancer and can also lead to turning on of inflammation and an inflammatory cascade that you will experience as redness and a sunburn. In addition, those pyrimidine dimers will turn on the expression of enzymes that break your collagen down, MMPs, and also turn on enzymes that prevent the formation of good collagen. And the downstream ramifications of that are sun damage. These adverse consequences are cumulative and accumulate. So the more frequently you're exposing yourself to the ultraviolet energy that's transferred into nucleic acids and creating pyrimidine dimers, the more accumulated consequences you're going to have, which is why wearing a sunscreen and/or putting into place good sun protective measures are important. And you even get those pyrimidine dimers and that damage at amounts of ultraviolet B exposure below the threshold to cause redness. So even a little tan, even a quick in and out of the sun, you didn't get a sunburn, you think you got away from it, you got away with it. No, you got some pyrimidine dimers. So you've got some DNA mutations, you've activated some collagen degrading enzymes, and you've stifled your collagen formation process. It's not good. In addition, the pyrimidine dimers damage the melanocytes and the keratinocytes that can lead to melanoma and keratinocyte skin cancers called squamous cell carcinoma and basal cell carcinoma. They also suppress your body's very brilliant cleanup system that goes in and fights those cancerous mutations when they first appear. So it's a double whammy. You've created a cancerous mutation and you've suppressed your body's defensive mechanism that prevents the development of skin cancer. The body does have a repair mechanism for pyrimidine dimers, but it's slow and it can take over 24 hours. So again, repeated exposure to ultraviolet radiation causes the accumulation of pyrimidine dimers, which have downstream ramifications for cancer and sun damage. And there's more of that in the summer because the UVB is very efficient at doing all of that, and it's more intense because of the placement of the sun relative to where you are on the Earth's surface. I want to say a word about the UV index. The UV index is a measure provided to help you understand how intense the sun is at any given time. It's created based on where the sun is to you on Earth, what the altitude is at the location where you are, because again, the higher up you are on Earth, the higher the altitude, the less atmospheric crust there is to absorb the UVB. So if you're midday, midsummer, at high altitude, like walking the Pacific Crest Trail in the summer here, you're getting more UVB than if you're down at sea level. In addition, the UV index takes into account reflection. So perhaps as much as 75% of ultraviolet light actually bounces off stuff and comes back and has another go at you. And the UV index takes that into account. It also takes into account variabilities in the ozone. So if you're in a place with a known ozone hole, the UV index will be higher. And it takes into account pollution, humidity, and clouds, all of which can scatter a little bit of light. Again, they don't give you really good sun protection, but they will impact the UV index to some extent. So yes, the sun feels stronger in the summer, and yes, you are perceiving that correctly. Yes, it is worse for you. It's more likely to cause a sunburn. It's more likely to cause pyrimidine dimers and all of the downstream consequences of sun damage that will play out over many years. And yes, 1 or 2 rare indiscretions in the sun will actually cause a cumulative increase in those downstream consequences. So I invite you to take a look at my sun protection page and see what I'm recommending to help you have a really good time with tons of hours spent in the sun, but no pyrimidine dimers. Anyways, thank you very much. If you found that useful, I appreciate a thumbs up. And I also would love it if you would subscribe. If you think this is helpful for someone you know, please share it as well. So thank you. Have a great summer. Bye-bye.